You know, they say that having the right tool for the job is important, but obviously I'm not about that life. Hello again, team. It's Jess or JashiiCorrin, and welcome back for my 2021 bullet journal setup. If you saw my planner lineup video from last week, or if you're paying attention now, you'll see that the journal that I'm going to be using is the Archer & Olive Vintage B Notebook. And it's so pretty. As always, before jumping in and setting up this journal, I did a bunch of planning about what I wanted to include, colours to use, etc., but more about that later. All of the equipment I use in this setup can be found in the description box below, but without further ado, let's get to planning. I figure that before we get too far into this plan with me, I should probably introduce myself, just in case you're new here or you haven't heard the spiel before. Hi, I'm Jess, or JashiiCorrin. I make videos about journals, and in general how to organise your life, how to get creative, that kind of stuff. A little bit about me though, I am a teacher. I teach at an all-girls school in Wellington, New Zealand, and my subject is science. In particular, chemistry, with a little bit of physics and biology thrown in here and there. Along with my videos about journaling and the like, I also release a weekly vlog where I show you the kind of shenanigans that me and my partner Vogel have been getting up to for the week gone. Also known as the week that was. Back to what I'm doing here though, typically when I set up a new journal for the new year, I like to make it fairly minimal. Well, minimal for me at least. So typically fairly straightforward in terms of font choices, not really any doodles, that kind of thing. But for 2021, I wanted to do something a tad more decorative. And my hand certainly paid for that. I knew that in particular I wanted to have page headers that stood out, I wanted to use gradients, and I wanted to use colour. After making my video of 12 theme ideas for 2021, I was really taken by the colour palette that I did for the city skyline theme. So the varying shades of pink that made up the background of that theme idea. So that's the colour palette I've gone for in this setup. The style of this quote page that I'm starting with is very much inspired by Aura Arts over on Instagram. I've done some recreations of her quote pages before, but for this one in particular, I decided to go with my own overall design. This really helped in making the page time better with the other spreads in my setup, in particular as the fonts that I've chosen for that central text, so the all caps for the words in the and of new, and the script for the word power, are the same styles of lettering that I'm using for the rest of the pages in the setup. So as you can see, the quote here says, "Believe in the power of new beginnings." I think technically when I saw this quote, it was "trust in the magic of new beginnings," but I'm not too worried about the change. As you'll have seen, for the gradient on the word power, I'm using 4 different coloured Tombow gel brush markers, and just laying them down from lightest to darkest. I made sure to blend using the lighter colour in any place where there was a colour transition to the next coloured pen. Just a brief description, I do actually have a more in-depth video on how to achieve gradient lettering, so if that was something you wanted to check out, I have a link in the description box below to that one. To finish off the lettering here though, I'm just using another Tombow to add a light grey drop shadow, and a white gel pen to add some highlight to the letters. In terms of timing, from first touch of the pen to final erasings, this one took 1 hour and 25 minutes. But flipping over though, we're now on to my year at a glance and word of the year pages. You'll see that for essentially all of the pages in this setup, I've already gone in and sketched things in with pencil. I find this especially important for the year at a glance page though, as it's just really easy to make one small mistake in your numbering that puts every other day in the year out. While I didn't go and write every single number into these mini calendars with pencil first, what I did do was mark where the first and last day of each month should be. That way, if I make a mistake in one month, it wouldn't affect the others. Thankfully, I didn't actually end up making any mistakes on this one. Well, at least none that I noticed. If you find one, just don't tell me. Just let me live in blissful ignorance on this one. Like I mentioned on the cover page, to tie all of my pages in the setup together, I'm using that combination of the script lettering with the pink gradient and the all caps lettering as well. I've mentioned it before in some videos, but I find that it's really easy to make all of your pages in a setup look nice and cohesive if you use a similar style, even just for the lettering. So picking a couple of key fonts that you want to go with and a smaller colour palette, just to make everything look like it belongs together. At this point, I actually forgot to put in the little headers for each month of the year on the Year at a Glance page, and instead moved on to my Word of the Year page. As you can see, my word of the year for 2021 is freedom. On this layout, I obviously have the header. I'm also going to include a definition of the word, and then underneath that I have some space to journal why I picked this word in particular. I'm not quite ready to do that journaling yet, so I haven't included it in this video, but if you follow me on Instagram, eventually there will be a post of it. In terms of timing for the Word of the Year page, from first touch of the pen to final erasings, this one took approximately 30 minutes. But of course that doesn't include the sketching in time, so a little bit longer. If you're new here, something that I like to include in my Plan With Me videos is the amount of time taken to set up my spreads. Mostly because I feel like with the time lapse in particular, it can be kind of hard to judge the amount of time and effort that actually goes into setting some things up. I don't want anybody to have unrealistic expectations or get down on themselves when they're setting up their own journal, because it doesn't seem to be as effortless or as fast as what they see on YouTube or Instagram or wherever else. So that's the Word of the Year page done for now, but as you can see in this shot, we do need to go put those coloured bars in for the Year at a Glance. To make sure those coloured boxes are nice and straight with really clean edges, what I like to do is use some washi tape to protect my page, so I can then just run my Tombow dual brush markers over the top and I get those nice clean edges. This is a trick that I like to use quite a lot, but it does certainly add some extra time to setting up your layout. For our Year at a Glance page in particular, including all of the writing in of the numbers, this one took 46 minutes from first touch of the pen. So quite a while for something as straightforward as a calendar, but I really do like the way it looks. To finish this one off, I then just used my Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen to write in the numbers and names for each month, and then it was over the page and onto my 101 things to do in 2021 layout. This is something that I used to do every year with my friend Rachel, back when we were in high school, but haven't done one for quite a while now, so I'm excited to give it a go for next year. The idea behind this one is that you write 101 things that you want to achieve in 2021. Ideally small things. We're not thinking of 101 things that are going to change your life and change the world, though some of them might. So things like go out to that new restaurant that you've been meaning to go to, watch that movie you've been meaning to watch. And of course, my 101st thing is always write my list for the year following. Although these lists can be goal related, I want to make mine more about fun and recreation and leisure. So making sure that I'm making the time to do the things that I want to do in those categories. As I mentioned in my video last week, I'm actually intending on doing a completely separate journal for goals next year. So in terms of the pages in this setup, you won't see any related to goals specifically. Although once they get populated, some of them might contain action items for my goals. I don't have anything like a list of goals or any pages breaking down my goals in this journal. I am, however, intending on doing a plan with me for my goals journal, which hopefully will come out next weekend. So if you weren't subscribed already and you don't want to miss out, make sure you remember, I guess. Or you could subscribe. Or you could just remember. After the 29 minutes it took to set up the 101 things page though, we are on to the 31 minutes spent on the 21/21s in 2021 layout. Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. The idea behind this one is that you have 21 things that you want to try and achieve 21 times in the year 2021. So for instance, 21 games played, 21 movies watched, 21 recipes tried, that kind of stuff. Of course, for some of these, I don't really intend on getting to the full 21. The idea of me reading 21 books in one year is a bit of a stretch, considering this year I only read 5, and last year I read part of 1. But in general, I thought it was a cute idea and I wanted to include it for the year coming. Of the pages in my setup today, I think this one certainly is my favourite. I just really love how the header in particular turned out. On the other half of this spread, I'm including a place to write down all of the media that I consume for the first half of the year. I decided to put the headers for movies, books, classes, and shows, in the corners of the page and only put in a dividing line down the center. This is because I know that if I try and section out how much space I'm going to need for each of those categories, I'm probably going to guess wrong, which will probably end up leading to a very empty book section and a very squashed movie section. So to safeguard myself against that, I'm going to be working from the top and the bottom of the page as I fill it in. That media consumed page took 7 minutes to set up, so one of the shorter ones of the setup as a whole, and then we're onto the spread dedicated to my monthly and weekly tasks and reset checklists. Something that I started trialing during the year of 2020 was doing weekly resets in particular, so a list of tasks that I do at a certain point each week to get myself prepared for the week coming. Things like clearing my email inbox, deleting the stuff in my downloads folder that I don't need anymore, brainstorming the tasks that I have coming up for the week, that kind of stuff. I wanted a page in my journal dedicated to writing out the steps in this list that I can use as a reference each week when I do that weekly reset. What I also want to start trying to do is monthly resets, so a similar idea that you do at the end of each month to get yourself excited and prepared for the month coming. At this stage, I don't have either of those checklists formalized. I want to have a little bit more of a think about them before I commit to putting them into my journal, but hopefully they will be ready to go come January 1st. This spread in particular took me 33 minutes to set up, from first touch of the pen to final erasings. But of course it's going to take me a little bit longer when I actually go and put those checklists in. If you guys are curious to hear about what ends up on each of those checklists, please do let me know in the comments. If you have any ideas about what you might put on a monthly or a weekly checklist, I would love to hear about those. I'm always on the lookout for new ideas on how I can improve my system. We're now on to my social media spread, which took me 21 minutes to set up. This one's pretty self-explanatory. It's just a place for me to track some of the metrics for Instagram, YouTube, that kind of stuff. What I'm also including on the left is a space for my workflow in terms of YouTube and Instagram in particular. So the steps that I need to take for each of my different types of content. Underneath that, I also have a place to write down any video ideas I have, or taggable accounts on Instagram in particular. The right-hand page is just dedicated to tracking some different metrics for YouTube, and then my follower or subscribe accounts for Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. At the start of the video, I mentioned how I did some pre-planning for the pages in my journal before I actually got in and sketched everything out. When it comes to setting up a new journal, there are a lot of different pages that you can include. And especially if you're setting up your first bullet journal, this can be kind of overwhelming. What I personally like to do every time I need to set up a new journal, and before I actually jump into it and start sketching anything out, is at the very least start with a list of the ideas of pages that I might want to include. And then once I have all those ideas, I go through, think about, will I actually use these things? And if so, what order do I want to have those pages in? For instance, you'll notice that in my setup, I don't include things like a key, an index, or a future log, because I know from experience, I don't use any of those pages. When you're first starting out, you may still want to include these, because you don't know yet if you're going to need them. And for some people in our community, those pages are integral to the system as a whole. In general though, if you're just starting out, or if you're a seasoned bullet journalist like myself, make sure you're including things that are going to be important for you, and don't feel like you have to include things just because everybody else is. Now for something a little fun, we have my Hi, I'm Jess and monthly theme pages. For this page here on the left, it's essentially an About Me or Snapshot of Me page that I'm intending on filling in on the 1st of January and the 30th of June. So at the start and the end of the life of this journal. I find that each bullet journal only really lasts me 6 months. As you can see, I have a list of prompts down the middle of the page, and then on each of those dates I'll just go and write a response to each prompt either on the left for the 1st of January or the right for June 30th. This is something new for me. I haven't done one of these before, but I think it's going to be a really cute thing to look back on in years to come. In particular, I'm looking forward to seeing how the responses to those change, even just in a 6-month period. On the right, I have a box for each of the months that will be contained in this journal, where I'll be able to write in what theme I'm doing, put the colour palette on the side, and then use the rest of the space either for doodles or spread ideas. Those 2 pages took 15 and 4.5 minutes respectively, and then we're into the back of my journal for my teaching related spreads. One of the big things that I wanted in this bullet journal was having my teaching and regular planning stuff combined. I found that having a dedicated teacher planner in 2020 didn't really work for me, and that wasn't so much the fault of 2020, but more the fact that when I take all the teaching stuff out of my bullet journal, a lot of the time, the only thing that's left is chores. That doesn't really spark a lot of joy, which meant that I wasn't really getting into my bullet journal to do much at all. So, to counteract that, we're having teaching stuff in here as well. In the back, I'm putting in a year at a glance. This one took 23.5 minutes to set up, so certainly less time than the one at the front, but it is a lot less decorative, so that kind of makes sense. On this year at a glance, I'll be able to mark in when I have school holidays, when we have staff-only days, and when I have sick leave, because these are things that I like to track. What we have after this are my term schedule pages. This is where I can see all of the lessons that I have coming up for each day and period. This is organised such that each column is a week, each larger row is a day, and within those I have space for 6 periods. I also have a more in-depth video about this one if you are curious about how it works. While the page I show here only took 11 minutes to set up, I needed 7 of them total for the first 2 school terms, so we're looking closer to around 1.25 hours. Although time consuming, I know that having these already set up will be such a headache saver when school gets underway. I always get really anxious about writing my name in a new journal just because it's on the very first page and I don't want to stuff it up. So this time I decided to leave it to the end of my setup, went in with pencil first, and of course added some of those little star decorations. And now as my hands are significantly sore, it's time for the flip through. So we have the This Book Belongs To or nameplate page, my quote page, Year at a Glance and Word of the Year, 101 Things to Do in 2021 list, 21 21s in 2021 and my media consumed page, my monthly and weekly reset lists, social media spread, my Hi, I'm Jess and themes for the first half of 2021, and then in the back we have my teaching related year at a glance and all of my lesson schedulers. I'm really excited about 2021 and I hope you guys are too. As always, thank you for watching, and if you liked today's video, please do make sure to give it a big thumbs up. If you wanted to see more from me and weren't already, feel free to subscribe to this channel, or don't, I'm not your mother. Until next time, team. Bye!